When a leader gets better or becomes better, the organization, the church, or the ministry becomes better. So welcome to BecomeBetter.leader, a YouTube channel that intends to help you to become better as a leader. So thank you for working on your leadership skills, and thank you for joining me. And I would love it if I could earn your subscription, if you could like and even comment in the comment section regarding this video. Now, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, I was invited as a leader to a leaders meeting where the leader of our church, the president, spoke. And he spoke about leadership and the ministry of presence, meaning to be present as a leader, and that is a ministry, that you owe the people in your life to be present. I think sometimes we're not present. We are there, but we are not present. You know, we have this capacity that animals don't have. Animals can only be in one place at one time. But humans, they are different. You can sit in church and it looks like you're in church, but you're on holiday. You can sit at work, it looks like you're at work, but you are at home worrying about something. You can be working with your followers, with your church, with the people that you lead in your team, and it can look like you're there, but you're not totally there. And therefore, it's important as a leader to minister the people that you follow with your undivided attention and your presence. And one of the big reasons why we are not fully present is because we're always in a hurry. We're always chasing the next dream, the next meeting, the next appointment, the next commitment that we have, and we are so busy. And I know that leaders, there's a demand on leadership and that it's demanded of you to be busy, to produce, so there's output, input and output in your life, and that makes it difficult, I know that. But he also explained in that session how hurry is one of the big problems and busyness is one of the big problems of being totally present as a leader. Just a side note, I think we must also learn to be totally present with God and be in the moment, be in the now, because the only thing that we are certain about is the now. We're never certain about tomorrow, and yesterday is history. We're only certain about now, and I think we need to be in the now, and one of the things that takes us out of the now is hurry. Now, John Mark Comer, when I listened to this talk, I thought about the book from John Mark Comer. The book's name is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I thought, I just want to do a few reflections from this book when we reflect on the ministry of being present, to be there, and to eliminate hurry specifically from your life. He calls hurry the following. It's like a diagnosis. It's the pathological busyness syndrome. We are living in a spiritual and psychological epidemic. Modern society, he writes, has traded its soul for speed, and we are all starving for time. This isn't just about being busy, it's about the fundamental disconnection from what makes us human. We find our worth in what we do and how busy we are. Like Eckhart Tolle always say, we are human beings, not human doings. So we define ourselves by what we do, so we become very busy. And so we become human doings instead of human beings. And we lose the power of the now, because there's this psychological, a pathological busyness that's part of our life. And he writes that there are two things that contributes to this sickness, the busyness sickness. The one thing is the great interruption. The modern day life has changed from a very simple life to a very complex life, But this complex life, he writes, are filled with interruptions. We have light that we can switch on and it interrupts darkness. We have a light bulb that can interrupt darkness. We have a smartphone that's got this capacity and ability to interrupt us wherever we are. I often sit with people and then there's a little notification coming through and I can see how I'm losing their presence. Because there's this interruption that's now part of their lives. And he writes that we lose our ability for natural rhythms. Way back, we went to bed when it was dark, we got up when it got light. And that's the way we live. That's the natural rhythms of life. The ancient people organized their lives around the seasons. But nowadays, we can counter the seasons. We can make it warm inside our homes when it's cold outside, and cold inside our homes when it's warm outside. We can interrupt darkness with a light bulb. We can even pull down a blind and make it dark so we can sleep. So we lose our natural rhythm. That's this great interruption that's part of our lives. We live in an interruption-filled society where there's always interruptions in our lives. And this makes us more busy and takes us out of the now. And do you know where God wants to meet you? He wants to meet you in the now. Do you know where the people in your life wants to meet you? Your children, your spouse, your family? It's in the now. And it's in the now where you can inspire as a leader other people so they can do great things and achieve a vision. Only in the now. I know that vision are very concerned about the future. But you can only create a new future if you are rooted in the now and grounded in the now. And he also writes the other thing is hurry sickness. A continuous struggle to accomplish more in less time. We want to accomplish more in less time. We want to multitask. And he writes, it's not a schedule problem. In the end, it's a heart problem and a heart condition because we think if we accomplish more, we will be more accepted. We will be more loved. And so we try to earn the favor of people by accomplishing more and doing more in less time. And here's the thing, love and hurry cannot coexist. If you think back of some of the things that you regret, things you've said that you shouldn't have said, things you did that you shouldn't have done, people that you've hurt and you feel sorry that you've hurt them, it's usually when you're in a hurry. Love and hurry cannot coexist. We need to calm ourselves and eliminate hurry out of our lives. The great spiritual philosopher Dallas Willard, if you can read anything of Dallas Willard, I strongly encourage you, devour his books. He wrote the following, he said, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life because hurry and true spirituality cannot exist. And this hurry sickness, it's almost the default life that we live by. We're just busy. You ask people, how are things going? No, busy. How's life treating you? Hectic. I'm so busy. And I try to restrain from that, but it's so part of my DNA and the way that we live to tell people that I'm busy because I sound more important when I appear to be busy. But there's a cost to this default life. You become irritable at small delays and small things. You start to have what they call sunset fatigue. At the end of the day, you're so tired and you go to bed and when you get up the next morning, you're still tired because this default life is taking its toll on you. And there's this constant sense of being behind. I'm behind. I'm falling behind. I must be in more of a hurry to achieve more and not fall behind. And it comes at a cost. relationship, your relationship with God, your relationship with your family, your relationship with your co-workers, your relationship with yourself. And he suggests 4 practices to reclaim your soul. And I'm going to put it on the screen and quickly going to go through it. Silence and solitude. It's a withdrawal from the noise to be present with yourself and the divine. Sabbath, a 24-hour rebellion against productivity, where you rest, you worship, and remember that your worth isn't in your output. Simplicity, to be content with less, live with less. And by doing that, taking the anxiety and the worry and the hurry out of your life, and then slowing, the practice of slowing down. So let's look at the first practice, silence and solitude. Solitude is more than being alone. It's a purposeful withdrawal from society, from life. And you can do this by having time in your day where you consciously withdraw from everything. For me, it's when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I come to my study, I sit in this very same chair, I put on very soft instrumental music, and I am just silent. I'm just silent for the first 15 minutes of my day. And while I'm silent, I try to focus on my breathing because it helps me to understand that I'm here, I'm in the now. And then I start to focus on God. God with me, He's with me, He's with me in this moment, in the now. And I don't have to worry, He will be with me this afternoon at 2 o'clock when that big meeting comes. He will be with me because then it will be the now. So it's an absolute time of silence where I withdraw and I'm just with God. But there's also solitude, where you take yourself away. And I do this at least once a year, where I withdraw and I go to the mountains and I spend time in solitude, where there's no interruptions, no phone, no appointments, no people, just me, the Bible, nature, listening to God, journaling, spending time in solitude. Now, if you think about the life of Jesus, this is exactly what he did. He often withdrew to a quiet place, often withdrew to the wilderness, the Greek word, the eremos, which means a deserted place where there's no other people. There he spent time in solitude. And if you read those times of solitude from the life of Jesus, you will discover that often when he returned from those times, he had more focus, more direction, more energy. So the first practice to eliminate hurry is to purposefully and intentionally every day spend time in solitude, and at least 1 or 2 times a year, spend time in silence every day, and 1 or twice a year, spend time in solitude. Then the second practice is Sabbath, to practice Sabbath. It's a biblical principle, but we run around and we're in such a hurry that we don't have a day where we have a Sabbath. Now, what is a Sabbath? Sabbath is a 24-hour period of rest and worship, and it's a weekly declaration that my worth is not tied to productivity. I'm going to say this again. It's a 24-hour period where you rest and you just relax and you're just with God. And by doing this, it's an act of defiance. You're saying, I'm taking myself out of the rat race to rest, so that when I enter this race again, I'm fully rested and fully focused. So it's a simple rule. Do whatever you like on your Sabbath. Now, I know it's difficult. If you have a full-time job, when will you have time for Sabbath? Maybe you can do it on a Sunday. But what if you preach and work on a Sunday? When can you do it? Maybe you can do it on a Saturday. But please find a time, and I think preferably a 24-hour time that you spend in Sabbath. And this is also, it complements the whole solitude thing, because you now withdraw and you rest and you relax, and you don't look at your calendar, you don't look at your watch, you don't look at what's coming next. You just do what you enjoy and spend time with yourself or with the people that you love. I enjoy going get on my bicycle, and go and cycle for a while. After that, I will relax and read something, but not too heavy, not too theological, easy spiritual reading. Or read from the Bible, long passages from the Bible. Then I would go for a lunch with my wife. And then just spend the day in rest, doing things that I enjoy doing. And most of the times at the end of Sabbath, you'll find the hurry has been eliminated a little bit more. But more than that, you feel refreshed to tackle the next work week if you do the Sabbath. This third practice that Comer suggests is the practice of simplicity. Now, what is simplicity? Simplicity is simply saying, I can live with less because I don't need things to give me value. I have enough. I'm content with what I have. And what happens when you live out of contention that I have enough, this contentment, I have enough? What happens when you do this? You become relaxed because I don't have to chase things the whole time. I can just be. Now, here's the thing. All of us like the bigger, smarter, newer things in life. The nice car, the nice address, the newest iPhone, the best computer, all the tech stuff. We all like that. And we sometimes compare ourselves to others and we feel we're incompetent to other people because we don't have these things. But if you live from simplicity, you say, what I have is enough. Often when people come and visit my home, they would say, I expected that you would live in a bigger house. I am content with where I live. It's enough. The relationships in my life, it's enough. I live from the simplicity. I don't have to have more things and better clothes. I have enough. I enjoy my car. It's simplicity, because chasing after all these things just complicates our lives and it brings hurry back into our lives. And I think this is a big challenge for a lot of leaders, to be more simple in your lifestyle. And they speak in government about a lifestyle audit. I think some of us must just take an honest lifestyle audit and say, do I need these things? Why am I chasing at them? Trying to buy things I don't need to impress people I don't know. Simplicity. And then the final one he suggests, and this makes perfect sense, is slowing. Walking slowly, doing things slowly. It's a practice where I do things slowly in my life. For instance, don't be always in the fast lane. Use the lane next to the fast lane. And be content there. When you're in Checkers or Pick n Pay, don't look for the fastest queue. Just stand there and be in the moment for a while. And I think we can learn a lot from people that do that, because they're so relaxed, and the hurriness, it disappears out of their life, and they develop this capacity to be present, to be in the moment. So like I said, drive in the slow lane, choose the longest line, leave your phone unchecked for 1 hour and see what happens. Stop multitasking. Do one task and do it thoroughly and do it properly. Can I end off with a piece of scripture? And I want you to meditate on this scripture as we part ways today. Psalm 131. It says, my heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. What's haughty? It means I think more of myself. I'm upstairs. I think other people are beneath me. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. if you just meditate on those 4 lines, what do you see? I'm leaving it on the screen for you. What do you hear? What do you see? I'm eliminating this rush out of my life. I'm eliminating this competitive out of my life. This competitiveness to be better, to have more. I'm coming towards solitude, contentment, slowing down, simplicity. Because these are exactly the things that brings anxiety into our lives. These things steal true spirituality from us, and love and deep relationships. It steals it out of our lives. And then he says the following, but I have calmed and quieted myself. I'm like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. You know, when a child is not weaned, when it's with its mother, it's kicking and grabbing and burrowing and trying to find food. But as soon as a child is weaned, that child can just be with his mom and be content. And that's the life that I want to invite you into as a leader. If you want to become better as a leader, I want to invite you into this life where you quiet your soul and where you are content to be with God. Why? Because when you accomplish that, there's this inner strength that will flow from your life, and all the things that you will do will have greater impact, and you will be present and impact people's lives. Thank you for watching. Become better, tot leader. Till next time.